I never expected my life to change when Marcus invited me to Bible study that Tuesday evening in October. We've been friends since college, the kind of friendship that survived geography, career changes, an inevitable drift that happens when people grow up and grow apart. But Marcus had always been constant, checking in with texts, remembering birthdays, showing up when life got complicated. "Come on, David." He'd sit over coffee at our usual spot downtown. "It's not what you think. This group is different. Just give it one shot." I'd been skeptical. My relationship with faith had been complicated since I came out 5 years earlier. The church I'd grown up in had made it clear there wasn't room for someone like me, and I'd carried that rejection like a weight ever since. But something in Marcus's eyes, a gentleness I hadn't seen before, made me say yes. The community center where they met was nothing like the grand cathedral of my childhood. Folding chairs arranged in a loose circle, a coffee station with mismatched mugs, and walls covered in children's artwork from the daycare that used the space during the week. About 15 people were already there when we arrived, their ages ranging from college students to gray-haired retirees. "Everyone, this is my friend David," Marcus announced, his hand briefly touching my shoulder. The warmth of that simple contact surprised me. That's when I first saw him. Daniel. He was sitting across the circle, dark hair falling across his forehead, wearing a simple blue sweater that brought out his eyes. When he smiled at me in greeting, something fluttered in my chest that I immediately tried to push down. This was church. After all, even if it didn't look like any church I'd known. The evening wasn't what I expected. Instead of fire and brimstone, there was genuine discussion about doubt, about struggling with faith in a complicated world. When Sarah, a woman in her 60s, talked about feeling distant from God after her husband's death, Daniel leaned forward with such compassion that I found myself watching the way his hands moved as he spoke, gentle and sure. "I think maybe," Daniel said softly, "God meets us in our questions, not just in our certainties." After the formal discussion ended, people lingered, conversations continuing in smaller groups. I found myself helping Daniel stack chairs, our fingers brushing as we worked together. "Marcus says you're a teacher," Daniel said, his voice warm with curiosity. "High school English." "You?" "Social work. I run programs for at-risk youth." His smile was shy, transformative. "I'm glad you came tonight. I hope you'll come back." Walking to my car afterward, Marcus nudged my shoulder. "So? Was it terrible?" I thought about Daniel's gentle questions during discussion, the way he'd listened to everyone with such attention. "No," I said quietly. "It wasn't terrible at all. I did come back the next week, and the week after that. Each Tuesday, I found myself looking forward to seeing Daniel, to the way his face lit up when our eyes met across the circle. We began arriving early, staying late, finding excuses to talk. "I've been thinking about what you said last week," he might say, launching into a thoughtful exploration of whatever topic had come up. Daniel had a way of making faith feel like a conversation rather than a lecture, like something living and breathing rather than a set of rules carved in stone. One evening in November, as we were the last two putting away chairs, Daniel paused in his work. "David, can I ask you something personal?" My heart hammered. "Sure. Marcus mentioned you'd had some difficult experiences with church before. I hope this group hasn't brought up painful memories." The kindness in his voice nearly undid me. "Actually, it's been healing," I said honestly. "This place, these people, you show me something I didn't think existed." "What's that?" "A faith that has room for doubt, for questions, for people like—" I stopped, afraid to finish. "For people like us?" Daniel asked gently. The words hung in the air between us. I met his eyes, saw understanding there, and something deeper. "Hope." "Yeah," I whispered. "For people like us." Daniel stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "David, I need you to know. I've been hoping you keep coming back. Not just for the group." "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, He reached out and touched my hand. Just that simple contact sent electricity up my arm. Would you like to get coffee sometime? Just the two of us. Our first real date was at a quiet bookstore cafe across town. We talked for hours about books and faith and family, about the challenge of finding community when you don't fit the expected mold. Daniel told me about his own journey. Growing up in a conservative household, struggling with his sexuality, eventually finding a church community that welcomed him fully. There are more of us than you might think, he said, smiling over his coffee cup. LGBTQ plus people of faith. We're not contradictions. We're just human beings trying to figure out like everyone else. As autumn turned to winter, our friendship deepened into something more. Daniel would text me Bible verses that spoke to him, and I'd respond with poetry that captured what I was feeling. We'd go for long walks after Bible study, talking about everything and nothing, our hands eventually finding each other in the cold. The first time he kissed me was in December, outside the community center after a particularly moving discussion about love and acceptance. Snow was beginning to fall, and Daniel's cheeks were flushed with cold. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," he whispered against my lips. "What took you so long?" I whispered back, and he laughed, pulling me closer. The group became our sanctuary in more ways than one. When we finally told Marcus about our relationship, he grinned widely and said he'd been hoping something would develop between us. Other group members welcomed our relationship with warmth and celebration. Here, our love wasn't something to hide or be ashamed of. It was a gift to be grateful for. On Christmas Eve, Daniel invited me to midnight service at his church, a progressive congregation that had been affirming for decades. As we sat together in the candlelit sanctuary, his hand warm in mine, I felt something I hadn't experienced since childhood, the sense that I belonged somewhere sacred. "You know," Daniel whispered as the choir sang, "I used to think I had to choose between faith and authenticity. But sitting here with you, I realized they were never meant to be separate." I squeezed his hand, watching the play of candlelight across his beautiful face. The service was about incarnation, God becoming human, entering into our messy, complicated world. And I thought about how love works the same way, how it doesn't demand perfection but meets us where we are. After service, we walked through the quiet streets, snow crunching under our feet. Daniel stopped suddenly, turned to face me. "David, I need to tell you something." My heart skipped. "What?" "I love you. I'm in love with you. And I wanted to say it on Christmas, because you've been such a gift in my life." The words I'd been holding back for weeks finally spilled out. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes." He kissed me then, soft and sure, and I tasted joy on his lips. By spring, we were inseparable. Daniel started coming to some of my school events, and I began helping with his youth programs. We found an apartment together, creating a space that reflected both of us. His theology books next to my poetry collections, his plants thriving in windows I'd forgotten to appreciate. The Bible study group threw us a housewarming party, everyone crowding into our small living room with casseroles and congratulations. Watching Daniel laugh with Sarah, seeing Marcus help with setup, I realized I'd found something I hadn't even known I was looking for, a chosen family that celebrated rather than merely tolerated who I was. Late that night, as we cleaned up wrapping paper and empty dishes, Daniel found me standing at the kitchen window, looking out at the garden we'd started planting. "Penny for your thoughts?" I turned to him, this man who'd taught me that faith and love weren't enemies, but partners in making life meaningful. Just thinking about how much has changed since that first Tuesday night. Daniel wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Do you regret any of it?" I leaned back into his warmth, surrounded by the home we'd built together, the community that had embraced us, the love that had grown from friendship into something transformative. "Not a single moment," I said, and meant it with my whole heart. Outside, spring was blooming, full of promise and new beginnings. And inside, wrapped in Daniel's arms, I understood for the first time that grace wasn't something to be earned, but something to be received. In community, in love, and in the simple miracle of being known and accepted exactly as we are.